So how important is it to find the right monologue?
Well, my cousin picked a bad monologue once and died. I mean, it was a couple of years later, but I think it's related.
I'm a giant marmoset.
And I'm 3 2x4s in the shape of Kentucky.
And this is Theater Battle. Yeah, so let's watch some monologues, and Joren and I are going to kind of give. Again, we're not looking at the performance of the audition itself, but we're going to try and just focus on the material,
Evaluating the choice.
Yeah, the monologues that were selected for these.
A bit of the audition performance is going to go into reviewing the monologue selection, in the sense that it's like, oh, this was a good choice because you could do this with it, right? Mm-hmm. In the sense, but yeah, we'll focus on the choice of the monologue.
Right. And with each of these actors, I asked them to kind of talk a little bit about why they had selected it,
okay.
What they might use the monologue for. So is it a dramatic piece or a comedic piece, or what would they use it for?
Okay.
Some of them have given more information, some have given less.
Alrighty.
And then I do also have the benefit that I know all of these actors.
Yeah.
So when it comes to like their type,
you'll have this.
I know more about that, but I think it'll be interesting for you not knowing them to kind of get a sense of their type just by watching and see if it feels like it's a fitting piece for them to use. It's a fitting piece. All right, so the first video that we're going to watch is submitted by an actress named Megan, and neither one of us have watched any of these yet. So this is going to be brand new, as Joren put it, hot takes off of these. So here we go with Megan's monologue. If I can get it to play. Oh, Megan, here she goes.
This is a monologue from Finding the Sun by Edward Elby. You know, after we're done making love and we have our cigarettes, Daniel usually looks at me and smiles, and holds my hand, and says, "Isn't it nice that we are just such good friends?" It isn't your usual form of marriage, isn't it? It isn't precisely the, "Hey babe, it was good for me, was it good for you too?" Nothing like that. But I don't mind. I think I prefer it. I think Daniel is more interested in our friendship than our marriage. I mean, like, he's not less happy that he's married to me than he would be to see Brandon. But if I were to lose anything, it won't be the usual way a marriage ends, you know, where the relationship ends and then the marriage. I think once Daniel finally learns that our marriage is as silly as it is, well, then I lose a marriage. But I think I will still have a friend. There are worse things in life than that.
Okay. So
I just spent most of that video being like, wow, I really synced that. I really synced it up nice here on my silent take.
It was a one-time deal.
Fantastic.
So what I like about this monologue, like my first hit, is it has an arc. Mm-hmm. It took me on a journey. Yeah. She starts off, and part of this is her delivery, but it starts off kind of light and fun and about being together and about the niceness. Yeah. And then it goes into, well, what if we're not together? Yeah. So it's a really nice choice because it is a journey. There's some stakes. Yeah. There's something for me there's a reason for me to care, basically. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I liked, this is silly to say, but there is a bit of a hook in the beginning where it's like, this monologue isn't just about anything. It's like, after we're done making love, and it's a little cliche to say that sex sells, but it inherently causes anybody to be like, oh, wait, what were we
right,
doing?
What was that?
And you don't want to lead in so hard to that idea when choosing a monologue, like, let's pick the most obscene opening line, or you don't want to pick the most crazy opening line, but it is something to always consider. How does your monologue start, right? If I really wasn't paying that close attention, is there anything that's going to make me pay that close attention?
And we talked about that earlier.
Yes.
Get us to look up from the paper.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, really nice. I think that she's talking about being married.
Yeah.
Which seems to fit her age range. She's not like she's not a little kid talking about being married. So I think that appropriateness of material was right.
Yeah.
And I think that that it was good for her type, because Megan is she's kind of an every person. And the foibles of relationships is something that almost every person deals with.
Yeah.
At some point, in some way. And so it makes it a very relatable and accessible kind of monologue.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. I think it comes across as like someone who's just thinking deeper about a relationship that doesn't. That can be off type for someone who seems like an airhead, right? That could be off type for someone who seems like they're really, really sure of themselves, right? If here we get kind of just from the way that even just kind of the filming the video sideways, right? Kind of gives you a sense of
which I hope Layton is going to fix for us.
Layton will fix it in post. It gives a sense that like this is someone who's like it. I didn't not believe she's contemplative as a person from what was presented, which is a good choice.
It's a very good choice, because you don't want the director to you don't want anything to pull us out of the moment of watching you. And if we're back to being a 13-year-old girl again, talking about how hard it is to be married, and after you've made love, right? Immediately as directors are going to be like, hold, what? Wait.
Yeah.
And that isn't the case with this. It did feel to where we could just say, oh yeah, of course. And we could agree. It's that yes and idea from improv, right?
Improv, yeah.
Yes, you're married. Great. Wonderful.
And tell me else about it. One of the things to start on the con list is, well, it had an arc. There was some context to it that like I could put together with some analysis, but I think I had to like, okay, what is this relationship like? I had to bring that to the thing by the time, fill in some holes. By the time the monologue ended, I'm there already. But if I'm not quick on my feet with that, I can lose a little bit of the monologue while I'm solving some of that. And when choosing a monologue, that's something to consider. And I think in this case, the rest of the monologue is fine, right? Like the monologue carried because of all of the other factors, but like there are times when those holes become too big to fill, and so if you have a monologue where I don't understand the context and I have to pull it up myself, that can be too much of a detriment, right?
There's one thing for me that I agree with it that really can pull me out of a monologue. It happens a little bit in Megan's monologue, but not too much for my taste. But if a monologue refers to too many other characters. Yeah. So you talk about Jody and Melissa and Kevin and Mike and all of those names are included in your monologue. I have no idea who those people were. Yeah. Right. And this one, she references one other person. So it isn't overwhelming. Yeah. And I can surmise that it's her boyfriend or her husband. Yeah. Or whatever. But if you're talking about, Susie did this and then Billy did this, and it's too much. Yeah. And that's one of those moments where it might be a great monologue in the play, but it's not a great standalone monologue. Yeah. So be aware of that when you're selecting your pieces. Is it self-contained? Yeah. How much work does the director or the audience have to do? Yeah. And in this play, this monologue specifically there's only one person, but I did at the beginning be like, okay, are they friends or are they actually married, right? And I solved that, and I think by the end of it, it's like, okay, well, they are actually married, it sounds like.
but that takes some of my brain power away from critiquing the monologue.
Right.
Now I'm understanding the narrative.
You're pulled away for a second.
Right.
Yeah.
And the monologue can only handle so much of that, right? Like this case, I think you're not like losing the part for what's in there, but when evaluating a monologue, that's something to consider, right? Is there too much context that needs to be inferred, right? And inferred context isn't always bad if it's just very clear, right? Like if I know exactly what the answer is immediately, that can even provide value because this is just like a trick. It's like how a joke works, right? If I infer value and then twist on it, but infer value and being correct just as a reward, as a natural reward for an audience member or anyone intaking media. They're
Right.
like,
Let's the audience be intelligent.
It's like, I got that right. That's value, and that value will pass along to you as an actor if you can do that part well. You just have to make sure, is it clear? Is it always clear? One of the ways to evaluate that, if you don't have a good sense right away, is to ask the question. Like, so do the monologue for a bunch of people and say, who is David in this case, right? And they go, David was her husband. David was her boyfriend. David was someone she's sleeping with. And if 9 out of 10 people get the answer right, you're probably safe that the director's going to get the answer right too, right? If like 5 of them are wrong, it's like, okay, that monologue is not clear who this person is.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's confusing information. The last thing I want to say about this one is by naming the play and the playwright. I haven't read this particular play, but she said it's by Edward Albee, who I'm very familiar with some of his work. I've read about 4 or 5 of his plays. So I had an idea going into it of what the tone was going to be about. So it helps me as a director. Again, I was immediately connected because, again, I felt smart. Oh, I know who that playwright is. And so I was drawn in immediately because of that aspect. So so that has some value to it. The same can work the other way. If you list a play and a playwright I'm not familiar with, it might spur a little conversation after your audition where the director says, oh, where did you find this play? Or who is this playwright? Or just to gather some more information so that I can build my knowledge up a little bit more. Maybe I decide I want to read this play based on your monologue. All right. I'd like to move on to the next tape that we have. So this will be Aaron, female Aaron. We have 2 Aaron submissions here.
Aaron with the E.
Aaron with an E. All right, let's see if I can get this to play easier than last time. There we go.
Hi, my name is Erin Carter, and this is Maggie from The Shadow Box by Michael Christopher. This is a monologue I use for generals, and I would use in a general situation for a straight play or for any type of wife role. This is, she's a wife talking to her husband. No, I want you to come home. What is this place anyway? They make everything so nice. So you forget. I can't. I want you to come home. I want you to stay out 4 nights a week bowling so you can come home late and I can yell and not talk to you, you son of a bitch. I want to fight, so you take me to a movie. But by the time I get you to take me, I'm so upset I can't enjoy it. I want to wake up too early. Too goddamn early. And I'll let you know about it too. Because you wake me up too early. Because I gotta make you breakfast because you never, ever once eat it. Because you want somebody to talk to. Keep you company and it's dark and it's cold and my back aches and we never have anything to talk about anyway. And it's all right. Because I want to be there because you need me to be there. Because I want you to be there because I want you to come home.
All right.
Cool.
Yeah.
What do you think? First hits on this one?
I think the emotional tone fits the obvious type really, really gels really well together, right? So that, like she's chosen a monologue here, and again, she's a general. This is like for a housewife kind of role, right? She's chosen this, and all that stuff really gels together. And it also shows that she's thinking about the part when she's putting together her audition. And so the monologue kind of matches the part, matches the her own type, and those things all gel really well together. She's put together I am this for this role, and if I had that role in my play, she's already at the top of the list, right? Like she's like, okay, I have a housewife, but like the thing that she's definitely a major contender based on a bunch of other factors, but she's already right there. It's not like I have to fit her in somewhere in the play, which can happen. I'll have a really good audition that I just can't use because I don't know where to put them. I don't know where to put that actor. Whereas this person has said, I'm exactly this. Let me show you how I can knock exactly this out of the park. And that's what she's done, it's in that way, fantastic choice for a monologue, right? Like because of the, so many things that are lined up in a row there.
Right. And that's one of the things that really struck me about this one is on the previous one, we talked about the arc and the way that worked. This one doesn't have an arc as much, but it has a journey. It is a straight line, like you said. Yeah. But it's a line that still goes somewhere. Yeah. You're not just sitting there. There's a lot of repetition in this monologue, which could get repetitive. It could get redundant and boring.
Yeah, and it could also be repetitive.
Yeah, yes, and repetitive as well.
Yeah, slightly redundant.
Right. So what she did is Erin recognized the emotional through line of that, and she, as the monologue continued, she doubled down on that, and that still gave us a journey. Yeah. So it still went somewhere. Yeah. It was the same basic idea, but it became more. The stakes got higher as the monologue went through, and some of that is from her performance, but it's also, if you pay attention to the writing, you could look at this and say, oh, she's really saying like 4 sentences over and over again. This is a bad monologue. Yeah. No, it isn't. Not necessarily. Yeah. And your ability to perform a monologue affects your monologue choices, right? Yes. If you go, you know what, this monologue is stale inherently, but I see potential in doing it this way. Or the first half muted, the second half crying, that kind of thing. All this can add life to a monologue that's bad, and it should be a part of your evaluation. So if you read a monologue that isn't that great, it could still be a good choice because of it's right on for your type, you enjoy doing it, and you can connect to the emotional through line of it.
Yeah, and I was going to say the same thing, is that this monologue is just one idea, right? But it is still gripping because of the emotional connection that stays just on type the whole time. Like it's believable, and you feel the emotions, and that in itself is gripping. And so you can put a lot of value into that if you can essentially have that gripping emotional connection to the piece. But yeah, like you're saying, like if I were to do this flat, right, or muted, or like the sadness of the husband being gone is caused me to be muted, which is a very natural reaction and might be how you would think to play it. You'd probably lose me halfway through the monologue. I get it, right? He's not there and you want him to be,
So look at your strengths when you're choosing a monologue like this. If this isn't your strength, then this is not. It could be a great monologue for somebody and a terrible monologue for somebody else. Yeah. Right. I do also want to address the language, which I think for YouTube we bleeped out. Thanks, Layton. Yep.
Good job, Layton or Chris.
When you are choosing the monologue, recognize the swearing again. Make sure that it's appropriate for the company you're going to audition for. If you're auditioning for the Wizard of Oz to play Dorothy, leave the swearing for another monologue, right? Yeah. For another audition. Recognize it's there. I have a tendency, because I'm very comfortable with swearing, that I can read a script or read a monologue, and sometimes it doesn't even register. Because I'm like, that's normal. Yeah, I would use that word in that instance, and so it feels very natural. So I don't pay attention to it. So, so make sure that you're in tune with those kinds of things when you're choosing your piece. But yeah, I thought another really great, appropriate, compelling monologue. Let's hope one of these is terrible.
No, yeah, I was going to say, because there's always room for improvement everywhere. What would you say is the least or what took away from the most value, or the worst part of what is otherwise a good monologue? You know?
I think for this one, and this I'd have to go back and watch it again since we only watched it once. But I feel like without Erin's performance, I feel like the monologue doesn't have a strong ending on its own in the writing. I think that she solved for that. Yeah. But I'd have to check it again because it has a really strong beginning. No, I want you to stay. That's a strong beginning. Yeah. A one-word sentence at the beginning of the monologue almost always will get attention.
I would have said the same thing. We end up in the same place that we started, right? I know that the point of a monologue is I want you to stay by the first point. I don't really need you to expand on it for me to understand the narrative, right? And so, you could pick a monologue that travels a little bit, or even one that has like I'm not going to give you the answer to the question until the end, right? That would allow some more payoff at the end. Because I think at the end, aside from the emotional elevation, right, there was no reveal.
Yeah, we weren't in a new place.
We're in a new place, and so there was no, the ending was not weak by any means, but it was and we just are done now on some level. There was no, and that could have been a different choice. Might have had a stronger ending. Right. So,
and again, for me personally, that's the writing is where that falls down a little bit. Yeah. I think that this performance again I liked.
Yeah, no, I really liked your performance as well. But this is a review of the monologue choice.
Right, exactly. I just want to make sure, just in case Erin happens to watch the video.
Yeah, and she goes faster.
The ending was a writing thing. Great. So next we have Christopher.
I just want to point out because there's no end to me wanting to toot my own horn. It started off for that, and I managed to get it perfectly on by the end of it, just by pausing and unpausing until it was
just beautiful.
Just beautiful. Who needs synced audio? Who needs synced audio?
Hi, my name is Christopher Puckett, and I'll be doing Sir Patrick from The Doctor's Dilemma and singing How It Ends from Big Fish. Now, he's a clever operator, is Walpole. Though, he's one of your chloroform surgeons. In my early days, you got your man drunk, and the porters and students held him down, and you had to set your teeth and finish the job fast. Nowadays, you work at your ease. The pain doesn't come until afterward when you've taken your check, rolled up your bag, and left the house. I tell you, Collie, chloroform has done a lot of mischief. It let every fool become a surgeon. I know your Cutler Walpoles, and they're like. They've found out. A man's body is full of bits and scraps of old organs that he has no mortal use of. Now, thanks to chloroform, you can cut out half a dozen of them without it being any the worse. Except the illness and the guineas that it costs him. Now, I knew the Walpoles 15 years ago. The father used to snip off the ends of people's uvulas for 50 guineas and paint throats with caustic every day for a year at 2 guineas at a time. His brother-in-law extirpated tonsils for 200 guineas until he took women's cases for double the fees, and Cutler himself worked hard at anatomy to find something fresh to operate on, and at last he got hold of something he calls the nuciform sac. Now, he's made it quite the fashion. People pay him 500 guineas to take it out. Well, look at their haircut for all the difference it makes. Suppose it makes them feel important after it? Now, you can't go out to dinner now without your neighbour bragging to you about some useless operation or other.
Okay.
Alrighty.
So, first thing on this one, this was a memory monologue. It was not active.
I was going to say, this was, as a monologue goes, I was really compelled to watch because of the character that was done, but I didn't really understand what was going on all the way through. Like, I get it. He's complaining about a new style of surgery and new surgeries and that kind of stuff. But I'm like, I don't know. Why do I like? What's the greater context I didn't have from the monologue? But I was enthralled the whole time because I was like, I was just into the character. It's like, yeah, this is a grumpy surgeon, right? Like which is like, so let's say when we're evaluating this monologue as a choice for ourselves, it's like, yeah, you're gonna knock the character out of the park, right? But we're not really understand, like, the context isn't all the way there.
The text is a vehicle for the character.
Yeah, the text is a vehicle for the character, and the character was delivered really well. There was a couple, and this was essentially, these were all acting choices that really worked well through this monologue. But the monologue itself has lesser stakes. I just was like, yeah, I really like this. I'll watch this grumpy surgeon complain about anything for an hour, right? And
that's all House was. Right?
Yeah, exactly, right? We watched the same House episode for 5 seasons, right? It's like grumpy surgeon figures out something weird is wrong halfway through the thing. Every episode, nothing changed. Right. And that's what we see here is really strong character, right? And so, which I think did this monologue well, right? Because of that. I think if I didn't care about the character because of acting choices and whatever they happen to make, this monologue, I would put this monologue way further down because of that. But because the vehicle for the character works so well, right, I was compelled to watch.
Right, and so Christopher, so kind of like we talked about with Erin's monologue, she solved for the ending, the writing not being that strong. Christopher solved this. Again, the writing was not strong as far as a character journey. Yeah. But he took it for what it was, what the strengths were, and then he ran with it. For me, I would love to see the first 20 seconds cut off of it. Because I started getting interested when he said, cuts the tips off of people's uvula for, right? Then, because again, that was strong. Yeah. Before that, it was kind of like, I was kind of at sea a little bit. I didn't know what was going on, like you said. Yeah. Suddenly I was going, oh, he's complaining about procedures. He's complaining about beliefs and things like that in his profession. I think that it was also a really great choice because he said that this was about, he was auditioning for a period piece for a medical profession. And that's, so how on the nose.
Yeah, I was going to say, that is a huge factor in the things. He's doing a period piece.
He knew exactly the role he was going.
He was knowing exactly the role, and so you know, the fact that he doesn't have this, it's not the perfect, you know, beginning, middle, end action middle piece monologue is muted because there's other things that he's getting value from. He's getting value from being on period. He's getting value from that kind of stuff, and there are some little pieces, and I don't know because I haven't read this script and have it memorized, that I don't know are written into the script, but he would say something and then like say another line offhandedly. I don't know if that's just written into the script or if he added that in himself, but those kind of things salvaged the character, right? Where he's waxing about something and then he goes, and then something else, and then goes back and this is an acting choice, but he's broken up those thoughts into 2 different pieces, and because he's done that was way more compelling than just to deliver the lines straight. And so
it was all about character.
Right. And so if that was in the script, right, that would be value for the script. I can't tell you if that's a script or an acting choice. Right. That kind of thing added value to that monologue. Right. Great. Anything else? I guess we already talked about pros and cons of that one. We didn't just glorify that one. We don't probably have to specifically find
the one other thing that I would say, a potential con, and this goes a little bit more into how do you do your performance. Generally, avoid doing an accent. Unless you are 100% sure that you're going to nail that accent, it's one extra piece that could go wrong. It's one extra piece that could, as you said, could give you a low score. Yeah. On something that doesn't need to be scored in an audition. Unless you specifically stated in your audition announcement, show up with your best British accent. Don't do it in an accent.
Yeah, if you bring something extra to an audition that you don't nail, right, it counts against you.
You only hurt yourself.
Yeah. If you bring something extra to an audition that you knock out of the park, right, you'll add value. But you only have those 2 options. Do it perfectly and add value, or do it anywhere below 90% and you've detracted from your audition.
Yeah. So weigh those choices really carefully.
Yes. So anytime you're like, you should avoid this, it's like avoid this unless you do it perfectly, right?
Unless this is your strength.
Yeah, unless this is the thing that you do well. Right. And then it becomes a value, and which is a part of why there's not a series of rules for choosing a monologue. It's like never choose an accent, never juggle, never that kind of thing. You can't just have those rules because like I think I've said previously, the target is moving and changes.
Yep, and there's so many variables.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to the next video, which will be Candra.
Is she a good artist?
She is. Yeah.
She can draw.
I'm going to restart the video.
Oh, yeah, I didn't start.
That joke was not worth it. Shame on you. Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
All right, here goes.
Yeah, I get a little depressed sometimes. I don't know, maybe because I feel cut off from my body a little bit. Maybe it's because I have so many clothes. I have so many clothes. Makes me feel like a Barbie doll. And I think sometimes I do too much shopping, you know? Just shop and shop and shop and shop and it makes me feel great that I can do that. I feel strong. It almost gets me high. But then sooner or later I collapse. And I feel so bad. Ashamed. Like I've sinned. And nothing. Like I was nothing. And then I'm in bed, and if you're out there working somewhere, working at a big, fat job, and I just feel so weak from that idea that I can't get up. I have to call somebody on the phone. I have to call everybody I've ever known on the phone from my bed. Like I was a little spider weaving a web out of telephone wire. Just to stand up and walk.
Nice fade transition there at the end.
Yeah.
Oh, that helped.
Yeah.
The first impressions. You have to do your first impressions first this time.
Okay, my first impression, I was drawn in immediately because the text says, sometimes I get so depressed, and she had such a fantastic smile while she delivered it. So the juxtaposition between what she was saying and what she was showing, and the conviction that she started with.
Yeah.
I was brought in right away.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, is that it was very well acted. And that the opening was really strong because there's just a lot of emotions in the beginning that you just are coming through very, very clearly, and really on type. This is a little, I don't know if it's too stereotypical to say, but we've got this woman shopping, and that's that it's just believable, right? Obviously, you've got men and women who both are like that. But
Yeah.
It's not jarring at all to have. There's no contradiction there, and so.
Plus, I think her look, she's presented in a very attractive way.
Mhm.
She talks about like being like a Barbie.
Yes.
So yeah,
she talks
I think
about her clothes, all
yeah.
that kind of stuff.
I didn't doubt her.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of context missing from here that like I found myself confused once or twice. It resolves quickly, but I step out of the monologue at one point when she's like, I just have to call everybody, and I feel like I'm a spider. And then there's a big break. It's weaving a web of telephone wires. I go, why is she a spider? For a moment. And while the illusion is clever, a spider of telephone wires is like poetry as far as...
even almost rhymes.
Yeah. The break in the center there just allowed for a little bit of confusion, right? And that we travel from like, I'm sad and I have a shopping addiction to we're going somewhere else, and there's that transition inside the monologue is confusing. I think we get to a place where it kind of makes sense altogether, but I don't know. There was a moment there where I was a little lost, and that can be valued or kind of against that choice of that monologue.
Yeah, absolutely. We've talked before about you don't want the director to get pulled out of the moment.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So what I might suggest with this monologue, if I were talking to her, is consider cutting that out.
Mm-hmm.
Just cut that one or two sentences out.
Yeah.
I don't think, again, this is my one viewing, so I don't know for sure, but I don't think that it would lose what was going on if you took that phrase out, if you took that metaphor.
Yeah.
I think that it would have been better if there was something about spiders or insects or bugs or something at another place in the monologue, so it was a metaphor that ran through the whole text.
Because that metaphor, well, it's cool. Like I was saying, I just I don't get why it's being used.
Yeah.
Right?
It feels out of place. It's a very like tangible, earthbound monologue. She's going through very grounding emotions. Suddenly becomes poetry. Yeah. And then it goes back to being grounded again.
Yeah. And so and that section of like having to call everybody to get out of bed, I think you can infer the context for it, right? But it's still, I don't think we're necessarily there by the end of the monologue, right? So it's like the wording, the monologue as written starts really strong and then gets to a place where it kind of reaches confusion. One of the things that I think she did really, really well was have this emotional throughput of the thing, which made it so that I was compelled to watch the whole thing anyway. I wasn't like, okay, next,
Again, talking about the performance over the. So again, I think that Candra took a good monologue. Yeah. And she found just to touch on her performance for me, she found the subtext. And she played the subtext. I loved almost all of her uses of pausing and what she did with the tempo. Almost 100% through. Yeah. There's a couple points where I think it was a little much. Didn't quite hit the mark, but again, that's her performance. Yeah. I think the monologue itself, I think one of the follies of when you're choosing a monologue, you want to know who your other is, who it is you're talking to. And I think I get the feeling that she's talking to a psychiatrist kind of thing, which is low-hanging fruit for your monologue. So again, try to find a monologue that's more compelling, because while this could be considered an active monologue because she's going through these emotions right now, if she's talking to her psychiatrist, she's probably sitting on a couch or laying on a bed or something while she's doing it. So it's an inactive monologue. Yeah.
You could see, like, if this was staged and she's talking to the person that she's feeling distant from, like who this other person that's going out and working is, it's a lot more active. It's a longing, if she's just reminiscing to somebody else, she's complaining to somebody else, then it loses a little bit of its punch, right? I think it's really well acted, right? And so then that becomes really compelling. when something's really well acted, which is something to consider when choosing a monologue. Is that like it's like, you know what, I can nail the shit out of this, right? Remove that in post. I can nail the shit out of this. And I think in this case, especially at the beginning, I was like really drawn in, and so that kind of thing, it needs to be considered as well.
Yeah, I think another downfall of the writing of this monologue is I feel like the climax hits about 2/3 of the way through the monologue, and then she had kind of said everything that I needed to hear at that point. And the stuff that came after that, it was almost like, it wasn't quite, but it was almost like, in my mind, I was going, I get it.
Yeah.
Right? You told me. So as opposed to Aaron's monologue, where the throughput continued to push all the way to the end, with this monologue, it landed beautifully about 2/3 of the way through, and then I was bored.
Yeah.
There was nothing new to bring to it. And maybe that's why the little piece of poetry was in there. Maybe the playwright realized.
Yeah.
But just kind of recognize where's the climax of your monologue, and is there a way that you can adjust that? Can you move it somehow?
Yeah, and that's something also that like you may not realize when this monologue is taken from the context of the play, right? It's like we might have already had like this character does use this kind of illusion often, and this thing is very natural for them to the way they talk,
right?
And so evaluating the context on its own might serve this monologue a little better. One of the other things, we didn't get a playwright, we didn't get a play that it's from, or we didn't get any context of why this play was chosen.
I think she put it in the original monologue. It's from a play called Women of Manhattan.
Okay.
Which I'm not familiar with.
Me,
but yeah, that was she didn't have it in the slate, and I think that's because I think that was just the way she had submitted this before. Was it was 2 monologues in a video?
Yeah.
So I think this was the second monologue in the.
Gotcha.
In her. Okay, we've got one more to take a look at.
Yep.
So
Aaron with an A.
Aaron with 2 A's. Actually.
A's.
This is Aaron.
Aaron.
All right. So let's see what Aaron has for us.
This is from The Merchant of Venice by William Shakespeare. This is a monologue I would primarily use for dramatic auditions. Signor Antonio, many a time and often the Rialto you have rated me about my moneys and my usances. Still, have I borne it with a patient shrug, for sufferance is the badge of all our tribe. You call me misbeliever, cutthroat dog, and spet upon my Jewish gabardine, and all for use of that which is mine own. Well, it now appears you need my help. What should I say to you? Should I not say, hath a dog money? Is it possible a cur could lend 3,000 ducats? Or shall I bend low, and in a bondsman's key, with bated breath and whispering humbleness, say this: Oh, fair sir, you spat on me on Wednesday last, you spurned me such a day another time, you called me dog, and for these courtesies I'll lend thee thus much moneys.
Okay, Merchant of Venice. So, thoughts?
I liked the character presented. So we go into this monologue. It's got these flowery things. I guess I should say I like the choice. The context of this thing is immediately apparent from the words of the monologue, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, look, you come to me, you come to me. Yeah. It's like, how ironic is it that you, who have made fun of me, are coming to me for money, right? And he's bathing in the irony of it, right? I don't need to know anything, but you don't need to watch anything. Watch the Shakespeare play, the Shakespeare's, this one, The Merchant of Venice, to know what this is. Even though the language is flowery, you could be a 7th grader and understand it because he's understood the material really well, which is.
Yep, you could tell he knew what he was saying.
Yes,
yep.
Right, and which is often a problem when you get a Shakespeare monologue. It's like, well, it's Shakespeare, so it's good, and then it's not good because you didn't bring it, right? This in this case, we did, right?
Which is, I want to point out there's a lot of actors that shy away from Shakespeare.
Yeah,
but there's a reason why he's endured for 500 years.
Yeah,
and it's because the quality of the language, it gives you everything.
Mm-hmm.
So you have the context, you have the setting, you know the players that are involved, you know what's going on just from the words.
Yeah.
Everything is there that you need as an actor in order to take advantage of the storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
So trust it. If you have a need for a classic monologue, I call it Shakespeare. Don't be afraid to get into his works. Because it's going to pay off if you understand what you're saying.
Yes. And in this case, we see that. And one of the things I liked about this play is we follow a trajectory and we land at what is essentially a cliffhanger, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm upset that they only watched 2 minutes of this. It's like, I now need to finish this
play.
I
want more.
Yeah. And so that's a good landing place is also at, like the handshake here moment is like, oh, what happens next? What did the other person say? I need to know how it continues.
And a strong ending for your monologue. He chose an acting strong ending.
Yes.
By spitting in his hand and holding it out.
Yeah.
That is an audition you will remember.
Yes.
So again, it's not so much in the monologue selection, but he chose a piece that offered something like that. It offered a really strong choice at the end.
Yeah.
So yeah, I also like that he didn't choose the well-known monologue.
Yes.
From Merchant of Venice. If you cut me, do we not bleed? Right.
Yeah.
He took the same character from a little bit earlier and delved into it. But it's smart because it's a character that theater people, even if you haven't read Merchant of Venice, were familiar with who Shylock is. Mm-hmm. So we have some context. You've been talking about that before with some of these other monologues, not having context. So we have context right away because of who the character is.
Yeah.
So we can understand, and it's very easy for our brains to kind of fill in some of the other information.
Yeah.
Super easy for that to happen.
Yeah, and that's one of those where I think the inference is actually helping the monologue selection because it's so very clear. It's painting with a negative, right? He's saying you who comes to, you don't even need to know who the you is in this, right? To know what the you has done to Shylock, right? And so, which is a really good choice for that. And like you're saying, it's not the monologue that you're used to seeing from it, but still perfectly encapsulates the character. You get this sense, if he was auditioning for any sort of rogue, right? Any a Han Solo type bravado character, he's got the part because he brought that to the
or even with a little twisted delivery, a villain character.
Yes, exactly.
Because that's when Shylock written, of course, was a villain. Now we see him in a different light nowadays. But which brings up my downside with this, which is the ethnicity. To have Shylock, when we're talking about things like Jewish character, there's a little bit more give and take in that because being Jewish is an ethnicity, but it's also a religion. Yeah. And so you can play this character off. There's a little bit of freedom with Jewish characters. Same thing if you're if you're a white guy and you're playing an Irish character or German character, right? So when we're talking about ethnicities, there is still a little room there. But I would, I'm not going to say this was a poor choice, but I would question a blonde-haired, blue-eyed white guy choosing a monologue by Shylock. Yeah. Again, this is one of those instances. I don't know whether it's an inappropriate choice or not, but it's something that I would question.
Yeah, it is something to consider in your choice.
Yeah,
right?
when you select your monologues.
It's something to be aware of because and if you're ever like confused on an angle, go talk to other people. Right, the more voices you get, the more you'll get a sense of the culture about it. Right,
the appropriateness. Or just don't do it.
Yeah,
if you're not sure.
Find
a different model.
That is a very safe piece of advice. If you're not sure, do something else.
Yeah.
And it will be you'll be way safer doing that.
So thanks for joining us.
Yep.
For watching.
Tuning in to the short or long version.
Yeah, the short or long version.
Whatever you happen to be watching.
Joren, thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Yep. And let's do this again soon.
Wow, real soon.
All right. Thank you.